believe it's about moving those dark thoughts that you have and onto a page and out of your mind, out of your consciousness, you know?
Believe me when I say, not everyone likes peace, not everyone likes peace, not everyone likes peace, not everyone likes peace, it's just me, Bellissi.
Hello and welcome to the new episode of Now. I'm Bellissi, I'm an independent artist, a music producer and writer. Now, I had so many reservations on whether to do this episode or not on mental health, and it's because part of me believes that we've come too far. We've gone through a time where nobody was speaking about their mental health. There was a lot of fear about it. And then there was initiatives, and a lot of news coverage to get people to speak about it, which was absolutely fantastic. And we've shot through that and out the other side in a time where we speak about nothing else. And social media is covered with it. So many people, I believe, have jumped on this bandwagon and it's sort of watered it down, really. And I think for the people that are really suffering with mental health, they're swamped with all these other people that are just having a bad Tuesday. You've got certain reels, with trigger warnings and things like this for anxiety, and anxiety has taken over everything. And I think it's pushed certain people aside, people that are really suffering with their mental health. I think we need to change it a little bit. We need to come back a bit. It's good to talk. It's good to talk about it, definitely. But there's a difference between talking about it and parading it. And I think that's where we've gone too far, parading that anxiety, those trigger warnings, the labels. Everyone has to have a label. And I think it really does push certain people away and back into that dark corner of the room. And so in this episode, I want to cover how songwriting can help with your mental health and how it certainly helped with my mental health, And I think not just songwriting, but writing in general can really help lift you, I believe it's about moving those dark thoughts that you have and onto a page and out of your mind, out of your consciousness, And before I began this podcast, I went through all of my tracks and I counted 11 tracks that were written whilst I had these really dark thoughts, not necessarily about suicide, although some of them were. There was sometimes that I was feeling that restricted and down, that I had these thoughts, and instead of letting those thoughts suffocate me, I put them on the page and made art of them, if you like. And it certainly helped with me. It was therapy for me. And I always find that by writing those types of thoughts down on the page in an artistic sort of web, if you like, a web of a dream, it releases that from my conscious and frees them from me. This then enables me to move forward, even if it's just a few steps, but just beyond that dark sort of time warp, that trap that I was in just for that moment. And I believe that everyone has the power to do this. I don't think you have to be an artist to write, although for me it certainly does help, that artistic vibe or that artistic twist that I can put on my words. But I think for others, just that practice of writing those thoughts down, can release your spirit, can release that nasty energy, away from you. And so I say, try it. The next time that you have these dark thoughts, the thoughts that are trapping you, the thoughts that, that try to make you believe that there's nowhere else to turn, that you have to quit and there's nothing else you can do about it. I say you should write. Start by just writing just a few lines, a few lines about how you're feeling, and then try to remove yourself from them. Once they're on the page, just step back a little bit, and then you're already disassociating yourself with those thoughts, those words, and it's now becoming something different. You're just now the fuel to the fire, you're no longer the flame. You're just set back from it. You're just fueling it. And when you do begin to write those thoughts down, my advice is to be as honest as you can. Truth at this stage is good, and we need this truth to build this solid foundation. So go ahead, be truthful, say exactly how you're feeling. If it's really, really dark, write it down. You need to get every little bit of truth and darkness out of you and on that page. And you're really going to have to open some wounds to do this, and you may shed some tears. I know that I do sometimes. I go through all different emotions when I'm writing, especially when I've got these dark thoughts within me, and I'm putting them out on the page. And once I've written those dark thoughts down, and I've got this prose in front of me, the way I see them now is that they don't belong to me anymore. By me releasing them, they are now just a story. They're just a tale, and they're certainly the past. And I can now use these words, this tale, to create something more. And for me, I almost immediately see another person, another being who has these thoughts, this life. It's not me anymore. As soon as I put it on the page, it just transcends into something else, And I often refer to tales when I'm speaking about my songs, even if it started out as me, this main sort of character. And when I'm talking about it to others, I always see it as another person. So I always refer to him in the third person as a character. And that's the way I see it. As soon as I've put those words down, I have invented somebody else, And so once I've got this character, I can start following him. I can see what he's going to be doing now. And then that's where it becomes sort of songwriting or storytelling, is now you're following somebody else's story. And so this goes back to what I was saying a few episodes ago when we was talking about songwriting, or how I face songwriting, is that you've now got this simple tale, and now it's time to lift it from the page. Like I said, follow this journey. And I do this in 3 different ways, and it all depends on how I'm feeling on that day, and and what I'm looking to achieve, really. So on some days it could be just a simple poem. I've written these thoughts down, and now I turn it into a poem, very, very simple, and I'll keep it like that. And other days it could be a short story, or the beginnings of a short story, or a character in a story. So I've got loads of little snippets that I've written down, and I keep them, and that I can come back to now and again, because when you're writing, you might think of a character, and then you think, I invented this character. This character came up a couple of weeks ago, months ago, and you can bring them into this short story. And the third thing I do is obviously songwriting. So I will turn what I've written and start creating that as a song. And so now you've started to come away, and you're starting to write a story, a song, or a very simple tale. I say go as crazy as you like. You can turn this character's life around, or indeed you can end it if you so wish. This is now up to you what you want to do. However, I do suggest that you don't force it. So as always when you're writing, just let it flow. You've got this feed now. You've done the sort of foundation. You've got that there. Now just allow it to feed to you. See where this character's going. Don't force it where you want them to go, and just write. And allow these new thoughts to come to you as you write. Sometimes you just can't keep up with it. And this brings me on to another tip. Do not edit. Never edit. Right from the moment that you start, you're writing your thoughts down. Don't edit them. Don't read them back through and go, oh no, scrub that out. I can't say that. And that's the same when you start to lift this story. Don't edit it. Not yet. That's later on, because you need all these building blocks down, because you don't really know where you're going yet. So just allow it to flow and do not edit. And once you get to this stage, for some of you, that's it. that's job done. You may start to feel lifted, because you're not self-obsessed anymore. You've taken these horrible thoughts that were consuming you and you've put them somewhere else, and you've allowed these thoughts to leave, and then you've created something from it. So your therapy session, if you like, is over, and now you can continue with your day. But for others, and certainly someone like me, this is just the beginning. I feel better. I'm not thinking about me any longer. I'm not even in the room anymore, and I have a new purpose and a new life to think about. I've got this new character and he's waiting to go somewhere. He's waiting to show me where he's going to take me. And all I've got to do is follow and write. So sticking with the song idea, this is how I would go about it. I can now create something more. I can take it up another level. And so I'll pick up an instrument, I maybe, grab a guitar or, drums or start something and just see whatever's going around my mind. Sort of the story that I've written, or the song, the lyrics rather, they will be floating around. And so they may determine where I'm going, but I still try to be free when I'm coming up with, a couple of riffs or a drum pattern or, a few chords on the piano or whatever it may be. I just want something down so I can start to start thinking about the melody. And once I've got it all down and I found this melody, and now it's time to add those lyrics, this story that we've written, or this little tale. And like I've said before, and I'll say it again and again, when I do write, it's just a basic blueprint. It's not set in stone. I always say the truth comes out when you sing. And so I will write down what I've got, and then I will sing, and the truth will tell me where this character's going when I'm singing. And so if it comes to me that he's going somewhere else, that what I've written down, I will just flow with it. If it fits with the melody and the beat of the song, I will go with it. And that's it. Done. Session over. You've got those deep, dark thoughts and nastiness that was in your mind, and you've created a new life. You feel better as you've released that poison and you've set off sparks in another part of your brain and created. You now feel achievement and not sadness. You see success and not failure, and you see creation instead of destruction. And another thing that helps me with these thoughts or bad days is journaling. And journaling has been around obviously forever, and it's a fantastic way to release some of these horrible thoughts that you have, in your mind that's flowing around. And so I do tend to journal, and I don't do it every single day, although I do try to, but I always miss a few days. But I do find that helps, because it's just getting those words, those thoughts out of your head and down onto the page. And I find that it really helps with me, because once I write it all down, I see the truth in those words, So in my head, that's not truth. That's a load of crap just going round and round and round and just trying to beat me up, We're our own worst enemy. We always say that, don't we? Our inner voice, our little ego is giving us the left, right. And when you put it down on the page and I read back through the journal, I see the truth in it. Then I either see that actually it's not a bad day, or I am doing well, or or it's certainly if you have had an argument, and I do tend to do that, if you have a little falling out with someone, or something happened that day, and you write it down, you start to go back through it and analyze it, and where you're stood back now, you can see the truth in it, and maybe it's not that as bad as you thought it was, or you see, as I do sometimes, I see actually I was in the wrong, that was my fault, because you can see it all in front of you now, the truth. And I just find that helps, and I can then move on from that. And other times it causes a sort of debate really within my mind. I'm having a little sort of discussion, argument with myself, and I begin to analyze what's happened, or why did I feel that way? And that really helps me, because I believe so much in the page and in the written word that it releases my own sort of prejudices, from it. And it's like it's like bringing in a mediator, just that writing it down brings in a mediator and we can now sort it out. But I want to say something that's just occurred to me, that it's not all about bad thoughts. Obviously, this is about your mental health, and we rarely think about our mental health on good days, which we should, the good and the bad, we must have them both, So write, especially journal, but your songs, your tales, or any thoughts that you have, do it on good days as well. So on your bad days, yes, it can help you through, but on your good days, when you're feeling high, get those down as well, because that can help you. It could might be something for you to read on a low day that will lift you, or it could be a song, or it could be anything that's being fed to you. So just get it down. Happy songs are good too, And I'd like to end this episode with my take on my own mental health and what it means to me. I've talked before about that I couldn't do this journey without the love of God and without my special crew of loved ones with me. But I also couldn't do it without my mental health state. Going through depression in my 20s gave me something that I would never want taken away. I deal with depression like I deal with everything else in life. I need it, but not all the time, just now and then. And this may sound weird to some and a revelation to others, but I find a real warmth in depressive days. They are the days that ground me, sometimes in total fear, and sometimes like a paralyzing blanket that's, forcing me down to the ground. But there's a part of me that loves it. I do thrive on those days. I need those days. I need the highs and I need the lows. I think that's what made me. And sometimes I say, if you could say, well, would you take away those years that you had of depression? Definitely not. I wouldn't, because they made me who I am, and I got through them as well. And like I say, they still come back now and again, and it's really hard to explain, but I do find some comfort in there, And I think it allows me to look at life through a different perspective sometimes, It allows me to see the truth and lies. It allows me to feel so real, on those days I feel so real that the slightest touch on my skin feels like hot coal, and it awakens me and keeps life real and forces me to be constantly aware of my surroundings and, more importantly, of my own being on earth and through this life, So I hope some little tips have helped you here and you can take something from it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll speak to you soon. God bless. Cheers.
Believe me when I say, believe me when I say, believe me when I say, not everyone likes peace, not everyone likes peace, not everyone likes peace, not everyone likes peace. It's just me, Bellissi.